On today's show, you've been asking for it, and here it is. What will the LA Clippers 2025-26 record be? Gonna be talking about it all on today's Locked on Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. Your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA. Been a Clipper fan for 20 years. Been covering the team for 5 on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video, and you can listen wherever you get your podcast. In this episode, which is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. We're going to be talking about the record prediction episode. I've been getting asked about, well, Dime, what do you think the record's going to be? What do you think the record's going to be? So we'll be talking about that, why I think we're set up to have the record that I'm predicting, why our schedule really helps us with that, and why we need to finish top 3. So let's begin by talking about what my prediction is. Drum roll, please. I believe that we are going to win 54 games. 54-28. That would be our third best record in franchise history. Do I think we'd be the best team in Clipper history? On paper, there's a strong case to be made that it is. I definitely believe that we're closer to being a real championship contender than the 2013-14 Clippers, the 2014-15 Clippers, which have the best records in Clipper history to this point. And the reason why I believe that is because a very simple answer. Chris Paul or Blake Griffin are not better than even this version of Kawhi Leonard. Even though you can argue this version of Kawhi Leonard has declined a bit, I would still take this version of Kawhi Leonard in terms of wanting a guy to be your number one option on a title team over those guys. His two-way ability, but mainly his scoring ability. You know, I always believe that a guy that can go out and get you 25 to 30 points efficiently and can score from, all 3 levels of the floor, but mainly can really just get his shot up over just about any defender. I think that's the key, is he can score on just about anyone. That is, who I'd like to be a number one option. Those kind of players are who I'd like to be the number one options when you're trying to win a championship. So as far as why I believe we're going to win 54 games and why we're going to win less is just because, I don't know, the regular season is not what it used to be. You have guys missing so many games now. It's just not what it was. So that's why I'm not as confident in saying. Like, if we had, hypothetically, everyone play 82 games in the entire league, including our team, I'd say we're going to win 60 games, or maybe 58. I think this would be the best record in Clipper history. But because our best player is Kawhi Leonard, and you can kind of pencil him in for missing 20 games a season at least, I don't feel as confident. But 54 games, I think that'll be enough to get us into that top 3. So I'll talk about what that means later. But for me, the reason why I say that is because our team is literally set up for regular season success. We've talked about this, or I've talked about this in a lot of episodes this summer, but we essentially have a replacement for everyone. I did an episode on if Kawhi Leonard's out, what does that look like? I also did an episode on if James Harden's out, what does it look like? And also, the guy that we really couldn't live without last year, if it's Zubats, we now have a replacement for him. So we have so much depth. We have 11 players that are rotation players, and in which case Ty Lue is going to have to make some very difficult decisions about who plays, how many minutes everybody gets, what his lineup combinations are. But when you got James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, and Ivica Zubats at the projected starting 5. And then off the bench, you've got a CP3, Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., Nicholas Batum, Brook Lopez, and I'm forgetting, and Bogdan Bogdanovic. That's 11 players with a chance to get rotation minutes. So it's going to be hard to kind of navigate that. But regardless, you're rarely going to have, I think, all 11 players healthy, in which case when you miss one, you have 10 other guys ready to go, and we have a replacement for just about everyone. If Kawhi Leonard's out, We already won 50 games in a season in which Kawhi Leonard didn't play a lot of it. Now, of course, without Kawhi Leonard, we were 24 and 21 last year, which is still over 500. But I think our team's gotten even better this year because we have Chris Paul to back up James Harden. We have Bradley Beal, who's more of a self-creator than a Norman Powell, who can easily take a larger role in terms of shot creation when Kawhi Leonard doesn't play. And to have Brook Lopez backing up Ivica Zubac, I mean, we are so set, in my opinion, for games that we don't have Kawhi, especially given the experience that we already have from last year playing without Kawhi. And then the more concerning thing, what if James Harden misses 15 games? Well, now we have another guy who's a pick and roll god back on the team, the point god, our very own Chris Paul, who, while he's not what he once was, and he's not an all-star caliber player anymore, he's still a damn good role player who averaged 9 points and 7 assists last year and is capable of leading an offense, especially when he's got these kind of weapons around him, to good shots every time down the floor. And if you look at his per 36, because if he does play, if James Harden's out, he'll get closer to those kind of minutes. Per 36 last year, he averaged 11 points and 9.5 assists. So essentially still averaging a double-double and still shooting 38% from the three-point line. So, and think about it, he's going to be playing with even better players. So to have Chris Paul on the team and a full season of Bogdan Bogdanovic, who can also give you some pick-and-roll chops and playmaking chops, and Bradley Beal, who can do that kind of stuff as well, which Norman Powell couldn't, it puts us in a position that even if guys are out, we are set up to have a successful regular season. And then, of course, last and surely not least, with Ivica Zubac out, you bring in a guy like Brook Lopez, who has had success in the NBA for so many years, starting every single year of his career. And last season, even in a down year, so to speak, he averaged 13 points a game on 51, 37, 83 splits. He gives us that pick and pop big man, which will honestly make our offense even harder to guard at times in the half court because teams have to make a decision. When Brook Lopez sets a screen for James Harden and you want to cut James Harden's drive off, you are leaving Brook Lopez open from three. And then if you rotate from somebody else to go Brook Lopez to prevent that pick and pop three, then we swing the ball, and now your defense is in rotation. So the best option for teams would be to switch that action, but then you potentially have a bigger guy on James Harden that he can cook, or a smaller guy on Brook Lopez, which I'm very curious to see. Is he still willing to cook? Is he still willing to get into the post when he's got a smaller guy on him and go to work the way he used to when he was with Brooklyn? And we saw that kind of less and less from him as he was a Milwaukee Buck. So you definitely want to see that because teams are going to try to do that. They're going to try to switch that action, especially when it's Kawhi, who's the ball handler, because what teams have done in recent years is because Kawhi's not the quickest anymore, they'll switch a big onto him so that he can't bully them. And sometimes Kawhi has had a little bit of problems. But Brook Lopez, in that case, could take advantage of a small. So I'm very curious to see how he does that. So for me, 54 and 28 will be our record. We're set up to have a good regular season with the roster and the depth that we have. But coming up, I'm also going to talk about why our schedule, for me, is part of the reason why I'm confident that we should have a very good regular season. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. That's tomorrow. A brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. And if we're talking about FanDuel and we're talking about the NFL odds heading into the season, well, you can bet on the opening game, Cowboys at Eagles, on September 4th. The Eagles are minus 6.5, of course, the defending champions. And the Kansas City Chiefs are playing your LA Chargers. If you're a Chargers fan, the Chiefs are minus 3. That is the opening game at SoFi this season. And then if you're a Rams fan like me, the first game is against the Houston Texans at SoFi as well. The Rams are minus 2.5 for that. So please go check that out on FanDuel, because for just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. All right, so talking about why we're going to finish 54-28 this season, I believe one of the biggest reasons is that we have a favorable schedule. One, we have less back-to-backs with last year than last year. Last year we had 17. This year we have 15. So, I mean, you will absolutely take that. Another season without those dreaded home matinee games. I think that's absolutely huge. You know, our biggest road trip is a 7-game roadie, and that's it. We don't have any other crazy road trips. There's no such thing as the Grammy trip for us because we don't host the Grammys. That road trip is going to come in November, and it's a tough one. At Dallas, at Boston, at Philly, at Orlando, at Charlotte, at Cleveland, and then coming back home, playing the Lakers at Staples Center. So that is going to be a difficult stretch. But like in February, for example, we have like a 4-game road trip at SAC, at Minnesota, and then 2 straight games back-to-back on the 10th and 11th of February at the Toyota Center in Houston to play against the Rockets. So, you know, I just like our schedule. We talked about the month of March being difficult with so many games that we have, but there's a lot of games in that I feel we can just win. You know, there's not many easy games in the NBA, but, you know, we're playing the Raptors at Intuit that month. We're playing at Milwaukee, and who knows how good they're going to be this year. We got the Blazers at Intuit. We got the Pelicans on the road twice. We got the Spurs at Intuit, who won't be a pushover. We got the Kings and the Bulls at Intuit, which I think we should beat both of them, assuming we're healthy. But again, even if a certain guy's not playing, we still have, you know, a great squad regardless. So it won't be very easy. We play the Pelicans 3 times in the month of March, by the way. But I really think the schedule is important. And I talked about this in the schedule release episode. The most important part in getting 54 wins this season is going to be the start of the season. We have been gifted a very, very, I don't want to say easy, but on the easier side, 10 games to start the season. At Utah on opening night, which has to be a win. Now, does it have to be? Not necessarily, but if we start the season out with a loss at Utah, I'll be very disappointed. Not just because of my distaste for the Jazz, but because they are still a rebuilding, tanking team that missed out on the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. We need to beat them to get our season started, especially with Kawhi Leonard being healthy. You know, every single game with Kawhi Leonard healthy is a game that we should be out there thinking we should win this game, unless we're playing against like the Oklahoma City Thunder or something. And then we have the Suns on opening night on Friday, October 24th at Intuit. Of course, you better believe I'm going to be there. We need to beat them. One, because we lost all 4 games to them last season, one of which was an embarrassment in Phoenix that we were winning by a ton of points. And then we lost that opening game, the first game ever at Intuit Dome. That was very disappointing, even though it was such a blast. We had to win that game. So without Kevin Durant now, you know, they're not as strong of a team. They have Jalen Green, they have Dylan Brooks, but we should be able to handle them. You know what I'm saying? Let's beat the Suns, get our season started 2-0. And honestly, I'm not done there. We've got the Portland Trailblazers next on that Sunday, October 26th. Of course, your boy will be there against the Blazers at Intuit. We should be 3-0. No disrespect to the Blazers. They're going to have an improved team. You know, they've got some good young guys like Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, Young Hansen, Donovan Clingan. And, of course, Drew Holiday's entering the fray now. They got Denny Avdia. But are they better than us? No, I don't think anybody expects them to be better than us. So we should start the season 3-0 in my opinion. Just take advantage of that. And then we have a difficult game at Golden State on Tuesday, which, that'll be difficult, but it's not like we didn't own them last season. We obviously had that big game to decide who gets what seed, who makes the play-in, who makes the playoffs, and we beat them. And Ivica Zubac had tons of success against them last season because they legitimately don't have a center. They have Quinton Post and Trace Jackson Davis. Like, these guys, they lost Kevon Looney. Like, their team is not very strong in terms of front court. Draymond Green has to shoulder so much for them. They don't have anyone on the roster who's 7 feet except for Quinton Post, and he's more of a stretch big. Like, Zubac, they're not messing with him. So when we play the Warriors, I expect us to go right through them with Ivica Zubac. So it would be really great if we could start the season 4-0. And then we have 3 straight games at home. Halloween against the Pelicans. We get a 2-day rest after that and play the Miami Heat. And then the next day we have the Thunder. So the only game, in my opinion, that we should quote-unquote lose is probably the Thunder. But Miami, their best player is Tyler Hero. That's, by the way, that's Norman Powell's return. So that should be an emotional night and a very fun night for us. But Norman Powell, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, like, that's their big three. Like, that's not, their best player is either Tyler Hero or Bam. No offense to Norm. We should not be losing to a team like that at home. We got to get these games against Eastern Conference teams, especially at Intuit. We got to blow them out. Like, not even blow them out. We got to win those. We got to take advantage of every single one of those. Because like has been the case in almost every single year of my life watching the NBA, the West is just so much better. So we got to take advantage of the trash out East. And I'm not saying Miami's trash, but they're average. They're very average. They're like a play-in team to me. New Orleans is a very interesting one because, they're a team that's gone through some changes. They don't have Brandon Ingram anymore. DeJounte Murray is still going to be out for quite some time, obviously. But, you got guys like Yves Missy, you got Derek Queen, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and then, of course, you don't know what you're going to get with Zion. They traded CJ McCollum for Jordan Poole. I don't know. I just don't think that team, I wouldn't pencil them into a playoff spot by any means. They can maybe contend for the play-in. I think they'll be in like Phoenix Suns territory, but it all depends on Zion. Last season, he played 30 games out of 82. So you want to talk about Kawhi being injury prone? Zion Williamson is as injury prone as they come, and it's very unfortunate because the guy's a beast, but he's only played 70 games or more in his career one time, and that was 2023-24, and unfortunately, he got injured in that play-in game against the Lakers, which is another reason why I don't like the play-in. It's just giving guys more of a chance to get hurt, but he's averaged 22 or more points in every single season of his career, even though there was, his rookie season where he only played 24 games, and then his third season where he only played 29 games, and he missed all of the 2021-22 season where they made the playoffs, beat us in the play-in, and they lost to the Suns in 6 games. So it all depends on if Zion plays, but I think even if Zion plays, we should be able to handle them and beat them. So, those first, I think those were 7 games I just mentioned. We got to get the job done, and so many of them are at home. Only, Only the Jazz game, the Warriors game, and the Suns game are on the road in these first 10. So we got the Jazz in game 1. Let's just pencil that as a W. Phoenix in game 2, W. Portland in game 3, W. That would be 3-0. Let's say we, just for the sake of being generous, we lose to the Warriors on the road, 3-1. Then the Pelicans, Miami, and the Thunder. I say we got to win 2 of those 3 games. So that would mean we are 5-2. And then we play the Suns back-to-back, 1 on the road and then 1 at home. So the Suns were playing 3 times in the first 10 games. We need to get them, let's give them a taste of their own medicine. Beat them 3 times. Like, they swept us last year. I know it's a different team, but let's have some pride, especially in the fact that they're the only team in NBA history to beat us 3 different times in the playoffs. I know these guys don't care about that stuff, but they should. You're representing the Clippers organization, and we don't like the Suns. We played them 3 times in the first 10 games, and they swept us last year. Let's beat them. Let's beat them up. So then hopefully if we win both of those, that's 7-2. Then we come back home to play the Hawks, who are going to be much improved this season with Porzingis and Jalen Johnson being back and what's his name? Nikhil Alexander-Walker. But we should beat them too. And that would be 8-2 to start the season. I think we got to start at least 7-3 in these first 10. Because then we play Denver, add into it, and then we go on that road trip I referenced earlier. So it's going to be tough. We got to take advantage of the schedule. And I think given the way the schedule has come out for us, it puts us in a good position to win 54 games like I predicted. But coming up, going to be talking about why the regular season is so important. I got to tell you a little something about OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. I have to answer so many calls for our club team, with parent logistics and stuff like that. And OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and texts from a single app so they don't get mixed up with my personal stuff. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right. So, for those of you that have listened to this show since I've taken over for several years or listened to Dime Dropper, I have not a rule, but a very strong belief that you've got to be a top 3 seed to win a ring. Not just go to the championship, to win a ring. And the reason why I say that is because history tells us that. History tells us, and now history can always be broken or changed, but history tells us that only 2 teams in the history of basketball have won the NBA title being below a 3 seed. And I'll give a little background on those 2 teams. One of them is One of them is the 69 Celtics. The 69 Celtics were the 4th seed, right? This was Bill Russell's last season. I've studied this season thoroughly. It's actually a very fascinating season. I read a book on it too. Unfortunately, that book burned in the fire, but it's a good read. It was by Lee Montville. It was improbable that they won a championship. They were on their last legs. They were the last Eastern Conference team to make the playoffs that season. They beat a Philly team as a lower seed, and then they beat the Knicks as a lower seed. And that's the Knicks team that would go on to win the championship the following year. Their experience really did it for them. But see, that's the thing, right? It's not just about having James Harden and Kawhi that have experience. They had experience together. They had Bill Russell. They had Sam Jones, Casey Jones. These guys were part of a dynasty together. So they have been through the trenches with each other at the highest level and have won. So it's very different than any team like Indiana, for example, last season as the 4th seed. They would have had to win 3 series on the road. Well, actually 4, but they're lucky because what's it called? Oh no, they had home court advantage in the first round. They had home court advantage in the first round. It was the other series that they didn't have home court. New York and Cleveland and OKC. So they had 3 series on the road, but even 3 series on the road is very tough, and you're playing the 1 seed after the first round usually. And they were able to accomplish that and beat them. But then, you're playing a game 7 on the road against the other team. That is where it gets tough. Winning a game 7 on the road in the finals is so tough. That's why you got to give winning a game 7 on the road period is tough. But that's why you got to give teams like the 2016 Cavs so much credit, because it's so rare, to do something like that. That's why you got to give teams like the 1974 Celtics a lot of credit, because it's so hard. Teams have gotten so close. Talk about the Celtics in 2010, how close they were. Talk about the Spurs in 2013 and how close they were. Talk about the Pistons in 1988 and how close they were. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very hard. Very hard. So, that being said, the 69 Celtics, and then they were down 2-0 in the finals of the Lakers, and they won that game 7. Partially, Wilt Chamberlain got hurt, and that Laker team had a lot of, fighting that season inside the locker room. Okay? Not a lot of fighting inside the locker room. Okay? So that's very hard. And then the 94 Rockets, the 95 Rockets are the other team. A team that just won the championship the previous year, picked up Clyde Drexler in the middle of the season. And this is not the norm, by the way, for them to do what they did. They came back from 3-1 down and had a game winner in Game 7 in the second round against Phoenix. And then they swept the Magic, and Hakeem Olajuwon went on a generational run. So, and the Magic were young. But I'm not trying to take anything away from the Rockets. But it's like they won 4 series on the road. That's never happened. Ever. So that's an anomaly. And they just won, again, battle-tested together. We are not. We never even made it out of the first round last year. So we got to be top 3, and I think we're set up for that. I think 54 wins should be enough for that. And if you're wondering, and again, people are like, but they can get to the championship. What's the goal? Because there's a lot of teams that get to the championship, and even though you can say, well, if you get to the championship, you have a 50-50 chance to win. Realistically, though, did the Miami Heat really have a chance to win in 2020? You can say a chance, but were they really going to win? Was anyone picking them? No. Was anyone really picking them in 2023? No. The Mavericks, I picked them wrongly in 2024, and I was naive to pick them. They were a 4th seed. They got clapped in the finals. Clapped. And when you look back, you could argue they had the top 2 players on a title team in Luka and Kyrie, but after that, the Celtics just had so much more talent. The only reason I wasn't confident in the Celtics is because they played no competition because everybody got hurt in their Eastern Conference run. You know what I'm saying? So that was, and they played a young Pacers team that was bursting onto the scene and took advantage of injuries as well. So we obviously need some luck. That's obvious. We need some luck in the playoffs. But I think if we're a top 3 seed, it will make I just think it'll add to the chances of our luck resulting in something special. But when you look at last season, right? In the Western Conference, the 2nd seed was the Houston Rockets with 52 wins. So 54, I think, should be good. If you go to the previous season, 3 teams at 56 or more wins. So that was a more competitive season where 3 teams were kind of competing for that. If you look at 2023, the number 1 seed had 53 wins. So if we had 54 wins, we would have been the 1st seed. 2022, 54 wins would get you the 3 seed. So I think our odds are good if we get 54 wins to be a top 3 seed. And I think it's very important. Did the New Jersey Nets have a realistic chance of winning the championship against San Antonio and the Lakers in 2002 and 3? No. There are some teams that make the finals because their road is did the 07 Cavs have a real chance? They were close in some of those games, but nobody was picking them. Making the finals and winning the championship is different. There's another level you have to reach. And I think a lot of people just think, if you make the finals, you have a chance to win. Not true, in my opinion. There are levels to this ish. Levels. And that's all I have to say, because conferences can be different. Like the Eastern Conference can be drastically worse than the West. So anyway, that's how I feel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. On the road to 8,000 subscribers before the season starts. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers. By the way, my next episode is going to be something special on sixth man conversation in Clipper history. I saw a tweet about that, and I was inspired to do one. And I also got a request for that, so I'm going to do it. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.